What's going on, guys? It's a beautiful day. Today we are doing 2.5 turbo swap on my Focus. Today we're going to cover everything that we need to swap over in order to get the 2.5 to fit into the 2.0's engine bay, and pretty much everything that we're going to be doing. Keep in mind this is going to be a manual, not an automatic, and yeah, we'll just go ahead and get into it right away. Okay, so we're going to go over the couple of quick things that you need in order to make sure that the swap goes successful. So to start out, you're going to need the same tooth count gear as your OEM gear, but in the larger style here. So this is off of a 2.3 Duratec Fusion, and this has a 35 gear count on the teeth, and then this is the 2.0 gear right here that has the 35 tooth count. So we're going to be swapping over that crank gear, which means that in order to do this, we need the timing tool. So as you can see back here, I have this timing tool, and the toolkit came with the shorter and the longer. This is the shorter one, and then there's a longer one, as well as a bracket. So I just went ahead and used a little flat piece of steel that I had here laying around just to get inside of the cam gears. So we pretty much took the valve cover off. So pretty much we spun the engine over until these two cam gear lobes were pointing pretty much almost towards each other and up a little bit, and to where the cylinder with the screwdriver in it, like this, was pretty much went all the way up and stopped moving. I backed it away a little bit, put the tool in, and then when you put the tool in, pretty much what this bolt here is doing is it's locking the crank gear in place, and then these lock the cam gears in place. Now I already tried to break it free with a breaker bar, and you don't want to use a breaker bar on this since they have a friction washer. And pretty much I spun the whole assembly backwards a little bit, and it locked the cam gear in place, which ended up loosening the bolts. So pretty much I tightened up that cam gear bolt, and we're going to hit this crank bolt with the impact, and that way we can get it off. And you're going to need a couple other things. So as you can see right here, there is a 3-bolt spot on this timing cover. So over here I have a nestle of old 2.5 parts. As you can see, this is the mount for the 2.0 Duratec that goes on the passenger side of the motor. That's not a Duratec, but anyways, you can see that there's the 2 bolts. This is off of a 2.3 Duratec as well. Same with the Fusion, or the Rangers, I believe, have them. Some are different. I would just run the 2.3 Fusion one, and there's going to be a list of parts in the description. There's going to be a list of where you can get these parts from in the description in order to get your swap done. So pretty much this is the mount you need, and I've noticed that if you put this mount onto the 2.3 timing chain, or the 2.3 timing chain cover, that it actually fits, and it has fit, and it goes all the way down and everything. But I've been told use the 2.3, so we're going to use the 2.3. So I don't know if there's some difference between the motor I have and this stuff, but I'm just going to go ahead and assume we're using for the Focus. I'm just going to go ahead and assume that we're using all this stuff right here from the 2.3. So we're going to go ahead and grab this timing cover as well. And then this is going to be what we use with our 2.3 pulley. That way it mounts the engine in the car properly. So this is all we need to get the motor to sit in the car properly. So I just went ahead and hit the pulley real quick, or hit the bolt on the pulley, and a little bit of oil came out of it. So we're going to go ahead and take this off real quick and just make sure our front main isn't leaking. It looks like it's all just coming from there. It doesn't look like the main itself is leaking. This is kind of the front main seal right here. That's really all that's sealing against the back of the crank right there. So we're gonna go ahead and pull all the bolts out. So you have to leave all the bolts where they came from on the side, because these are all the same length all the way around. And then these 3 bolts as well, the crank pulley, and that bolt right there. And then that's going to fix it up. Don't ask about what happened over there. We're not using this timing cover. I ended up trying to lock it, break it loose with a breaker bar. Learn from my mistake. Do not try to do this. But you might also want to consider having like the flywheel on the other side and holding the flywheel down in order to make sure that when you take this off, it's not going to hurt the motor at all. So this is pretty much where we're at right now. We're going to go ahead and get this timing cover taken off and swapped. All you need is 8mm all the way around the side. You need to take out the water pump, the tensioner, alternator, and the crank pulley. And then we can get to all the bolts except for that one. You do need to take out this bolt However, there is one bolt, and I believe it is the one right above the crank pulley, that has this, it's elongated right there. It has this extra bulge. If you put this bolt in anywhere where it shouldn't be, then there's a chance that you can hit the head or the block and mess up the coolant housing. So make sure that this bolt goes right back in where it came from, because that bolt is dangerous. It's just way too long, and it's so easy to puncture through some of this metal. Actually, you wouldn't believe how easy it was. So I'm just gonna grab a little pry bar real quick, give it a little pull action right on the cam gear, and we should be able to get this right off. Get it with the pry bar. I don't care about this cover, so and give it a extra little push. There we go. So that's our timing cover. This is not going on the car, so we're gonna go put this in the pile. I'm gonna need that. I like this lighting a little better. So this is our stock 2.3 intake cam, and this is what we're gonna end up using. Like I said, apparently this has the same lift as the 2.3, which means that since the 2.5 has a lot higher of a lobe, it's not gonna be as good, but getting the 2.3 would just be pointless if they're gonna be the exact same. So we're gonna go ahead and put this guy on, which means we need to loosen our tensioner. Now straight to our tensioner. So this tensioner right here is the only one that there is in the motor. We're also gonna have to clean off stuff like these little bits of silicone. We're gonna put some silicone wherever it was in the same patterns there were, but bear with me. I know the footage isn't too well. There we go. So you can just undo the two bolts with an impact and let it drop back. That's what people do. It works. Or you can try to tighten it all the way and like with a bar or something and then pin it. But I'm just going to go ahead and take out the two bolts, and then we're going to soak this in some oil for a while, probably for about half an hour. And that way this tensioner just doesn't dry up on us and doesn't work when we put it back in the car. So pretty much two 10 mil bolts, get that out. Now we're gonna go ahead and take off this arm off the motor. This is the left side, so none of this is inverted. This is just the left side. We're gonna put this down on the side real quick, inspect for wear, anything like that. It looks pretty smooth. It's got a lot of oil on it, so it's hard to tell. We'll wipe it down, look at it. And now we're gonna go ahead and take out our timing chain off of our gears. And this is going to show you what happened with my gear. So when I try to take off the timing shaft, or the crankshaft, when I try to take off the crankshaft, this is what happened. So now what we can do is take off that gear right there. I took off the cam cap bolts. You just go inside and then out. I always take out this outer one first, and just because it's known to be strainful if you get any of them open and it bends this outside, can damage the seal. So anyways, in the order that they come off, you just put them down like so. So put this one down, and again, and then the last one. So we're just gonna pull it straight out from the middle with a little wiggle, and that should come right out. And now I can show you why this cam isn't gonna work on our 2.3 or on our 2.5 motor for a non-VCT. So as you can see right here, we have both of the cams. This is the VCT cam we just took the gear off of. This is the non-VCT cam. Anyways, this is the reason why it won't work. You can see I have both of these butted up, and if you can tell right here, the VCT has a lobe that extends out on it, and then that way the big gear, and so that way this big gear right here, it's offset in a negative way. When it slips on in there, that evens out the length. This is what we need, and I can't tell you about the VCT because we're not using the VCT, but we're gonna go ahead and get this guy in the car. As long as the two cams are opposing each other and that crank is in the right spot, no matter where the chain is at, you can lock that crank, you can lock these cams, you can take it out, and that cylinder will be at top dead center always. Did you remember to soak that tensioner? Okay, so if you notice really quickly, you might see an issue. There's no VCT delete. We're gonna go ahead and leave it unplugged, let the oil run all the way through, and then hopefully that this oil doesn't spew out. The thing is that this increased oil pressure is doing nothing but pretty much going into the cam and getting into the gear. This gear does not have a spot for oil to go through, so let me show you that. Just like this, you can see on the end where it goes into the gear, where these holes are, it just pretty much has a spot where the oil goes into, but we don't have that in here. So pretty much our inside of our gear looks just like this all the way around. So anyways, we're just gonna go ahead and use that. And I know it may be an issue, but if it does leak, and put in the VCT delete and put it back in, it's a $30 fuck up. If I do mess up, it's my fault. So hopefully it works good. Now we're gonna go ahead and get to the next portion. And I have to clean the block and the timing cover again. This actually, the timing cover was initially pressure washed, but it sat in the garage. It got bolted on and off the car. It's gotten pretty dirty. We're gonna go ahead and get that, and we're just going over all this right here. We're gonna do an oil change as soon as we go for the first start. So any RTV silicone that gets stuck in here, it won't matter to us because we'll just push through it. So same thing in my other videos, all the way around, light little dap all the way around, and then we're gonna do the same thing in here and get all this cleaned out. We're gonna get a little silicone, same thing around the holes and around the holes, and then we're gonna go ahead and stick it on once we get the tensioner on after it's soaked for a while. This is a good thing, good time to let your tensioner soak in oil, because now pretty much we have enough time to where we can get this stuff cleaned up, all of it, and get going. So let's finish that. Okay guys, so here we go. Pretty much Ultra Black Permatex gasket maker oil resistant. This is the shit. This is what's good on the motors. So I like to cut the top piece halfway up, and then that gives that little like 1 millimeter bead. You're kind of looking for a 3 millimeter bead, so hold on. So we're gonna start from this corner here, and we're just gonna start squeezing, and we're just gonna build up a little like kind of 3 millimeter tall bead about all the way down. So if you get good at this, you can go a little faster, go a little slower. Kind of rubbing the corners. Make sure it's not all the way up on the corners, but make sure you have that little lip right there. And then we're gonna also let it tack for about 10 minutes. Camera's not focusing well. And then we're gonna let this tack for about 10-15 minutes, and then that'll pretty much help it when we go to put it in after we put on our tensioner and finish up all the timing on the motor. So that's the end of this segment. I'll go ahead and show you when everything is done and how I put it on and torquing the bolts down. All right, pretty dirty guys, got tensioner on, plates going on now, and it's been tacking for about 10 minutes. So we got a bead on there, and then I also just slathered a little bit all the way around the sides, a little bit extra in the top and the bottom corners. So let's go ahead and get this rolling. And a cameraman would help out really good right now. I don't know if you guys can kind of see it, but you put in a bolt in the bottom, and pretty much you just lift it up slowly and you put a bolt in the bottom, and you go to the top and you do the same thing with the top. You put a bolt and pretty much just slowly get in, and then you just push it on like that, and that's it. And then we're gonna go ahead and start tightening down bolts. And there's a specific sequence, but you can just go all the way around, or you can do the middle three, get those tight, and then once those three tighten up, then you can go cross pattern in or in, and then cross hatch out. Don't forget, here's the top of the head, 3 bolts down, right there. You need to get this bolt plug. That is this small little bolt right here. That goes in, and then go ahead and tighten that guy down. I don't know why I can't thread it on camera. There we go. So yep, go ahead and get that guy tightened down like so. Yep, give it a little bit of 8 millimeter torque, pop, just like that. And this one right here, that's a plug. This is the longer bolt. This is the shorter bolt. This is the same bolt as all the others, so keep that in mind. This is the longer bolt, okay? And then this is gonna be our timing lock. We're gonna use that. And this, which is our crank lock, we already made sure the crank was all the way down when we set up the timing. As you can tell, the tensioner is not all the way tight, but I haven't released the cams yet. So we'll get the crank pulley on, we'll tighten it a little bit, so that way we have our friction with our new friction washer and bolt, keep in mind. And then we're gonna release the cams because we don't wanna break the cams off. Bam, new friction washer right here. The 2.5, I don't know if it even uses one, but we're gonna go ahead and put one on the end of the bolt, so that way we make sure that our, on the back of the crank, that way we make sure our crank and the stub coming out of the crankshaft fully tighten up, and then that way we have a good seal on that on our new 2.3 crank. So here's kind of the other simple portion real quickly, is that you will put a bolt inside of the bottom right here, and we just impact that on a little bit. That way the crank can move. And then since this is already in place and we have our timing bolt here in place and we know the block's fully backed onto it, then pretty much now we're gonna get this timing marker. It's gonna kind of sit dead in the middle right there. So if you look at it, you can see top to bottom. The bottom's actually right, the bottom's right there. So if you think about it like that, you can kind of see it's pretty much in the middle. And then there's a little air gap. The air gap's not that hard to mess up, honestly. So, because there's not really too much of a way to set an air gap, I just went ahead and put it in. And then if this doesn't work, then we can just go and retime it, which isn't too hard. You get it back to top dead center, you just put the bolt in, and then you go ahead and set the crank again if it does have issues. So I have to get the clutch off of the other engine, and then I got to torque this down real quick. I already moved the cam brace, and the chain is nice and tight. So let's go ahead. We're gonna get the flywheel and clutch assembly all the way off. I'm just gonna go ahead and disconnect the flywheel from the back because I don't want to dismount the pressure plate and everything. And then I gotta go ahead and clean up this mess real quick. I'm starting to notice that I have too many projects. So as you can see, sun's going down, but that's all right because we're still gonna work. We're just gonna use the light on the flash on the phone. So pretty much I'm gonna go ahead and get the transmission and everything mounted up. I just got, as you can see, the valve cover on. I took out the timing tool. I'm gonna put the stud in right now for it. So we're gonna go ahead and put that stud in right now, and that should be right here. Yep, that guy. So when you take out your timing tool, always put your lug back in because this is going to leak really bad if you don't. And then we'll get our 10, tighten that down. All right, we'll get this tight real quick. You just get it down, then give it a good couple pushes. This can hold the weight of the crank fully, so tighten it like, I want to say tighten like 20-30 pounds. It's not a lot. Spins like a dream. Now we know that our rotational assembly inside of here is not compromised. Everything's good. I'm going to get the water pump back on, clean out all the stuff inside of here because it's got a little bit of gunk in there. And then you need the 2.5 intake manifold and throttle body. We're going to go ahead and put in the flywheel bolts in the flywheel, and then the pressure plate and the clutch bolts, which I got right here on the right. So we're going to go ahead and film this because I have enough battery life now. We'll go ahead and pick this motor up, get it out, spin it around, bolt it up, spin it around again, and that way it's ready to go in the car. And we're going to put the alternator, power steering pump, and everything else on it, so that way our whole serpentine drive is complete, which will just make it easier when we put it inside the car. AC pump as well. So I got the motor pulled out here, and pretty much there is some bolts in the back. I think that they're 15 millimeters if I'm not mistaken. And you can use a wrench to take these out and pretty much jam the crank pulley, and that's a good way to do it. And then pretty much you can get these out. I think there's only 4. All right, we got a jam, so it's pretty much a pry bar going to the ground on the crank pulley. And then right here I have my 15 millimeter wrench. We're gonna get it in on that nut right there. I think, yeah, we're gonna go the other way. So it'll be like that, as much as we can. Hopefully that's enough. You might have to switch around the other way, so I have it on. Now we're gonna kind of do like a daisy chain ordeal here. That's apple juice, by the way. And gonna stick this in here. Give it a little push down. I don't think I recorded that, but there we go. It's spinning, so we'll get the next one. I'll put my knee on the block this time. Daisy chain the ratchet. Oh, well, that one didn't work. Let's get this done. Now that's a heavy son of a gun, but this is an even heavier son of a gun, and that's a lightweight thing. So I kind of bashed my knuckle here, so if you see a little bit of blood, I'm sorry. But anyways, the old torque converter is off, so we're gonna go ahead and grab, I think these are 18s. Okay, So it is a 19, but I got to charge my phone again. So I'm going to go ahead and zap those bolts off and then bolt on the other flywheel. I'll go ahead and show you guys that. I'm just going to let my phone charge for just a little bit and try to find something to do in between, like the spark plugs. Something simple. That way we're not going back and forth with important steps of the process that you guys need to know. So pretty much now what we're going to be doing is torquing down the flywheel for the from the 2.0. But if you get a brand new, I'm saying brand new, a really good 12 point, you can torque these bolts down. So we're gonna go ahead and torque these down. I'll give you the torque spec here in a second because I forgot it. I'm gonna look it up myself. Okay, so I'm gonna make this quick. So when you're tightening these, like I said, you go in a star pattern all the way around, just all the way left, hanging left from just jumping across, or right, however you want to do it. You can go like that too. But you do 37 on all of them, 50 on all of them, and then 83 is going to be your final torque spec. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of that, and then I'm going to put on the flywheel. I'll be back when we put on the flywheel. I need to start getting stuff moving because I need this transmission on so we can go ahead and get this motor put in the Focus. We'll be right back. So I've heard that you can reuse these flywheel bolts. People do it all the time. I'm just going to wipe off some of this grease and stuff. And yeah, I know my camera's really dirty. I'm going to clean my camera, let it charge up a bit. I'm going to put on the flywheel bolts. So I'm going to put a 1/2-inch socket inside of here to kind of balance it. And then we're going to go and tighten down the pressure plate the same way. I'll give you the torque specs on that. I'll be right back. All right, guys. So we went ahead and tightened all these bolts. I believe they're like 45 foot-pounds, but I just got them really, really, really tight with a 3/8 ratchet right here, and I still kept the peg on the other side, just a 1/2-inch ratchet with a 21mm, and went ahead and got all these tight in a cross pattern. You don't have to be as careful with this because the flywheel kind of conforms to any bolt, but I used a let's see here, I used a 5/8 ratchet, or a 5/8 socket from a ratchet. I used this guy and kind of centered it in there. Got a good point of view and made sure that it was center all the way around. As you can see, pretty center. And then that way the clutch will go on. The transmission should be able to go in with the input shaft. And the trans is over there. I'm just going to try to mate the two and see if that job is good enough to do it. If not, I might have to find the clutch alignment tool. But we should be good. And then get 1 or 2 bolts in. We'll tighten them down. Get the rest in. We'll bolt the spoolie boy on and all the pulleys and stuff. And then pretty much put the serpentine bolt on. This boy will be ready to go in. So this is kind of a vlog because I am the one doing all the work. So as far as the Focus goes with the 2.5, so the water pump pretty much doesn't fit because the O-ring is extended. So pretty much we need a new water pump gasket, and we're going to need a new exhaust manifold gasket in order to get this to continue going, because we're all the way out right now of time in the day. And as you can see, for the most part, it may be a little blurry, is that we had the turbo manifold on, but I couldn't find a gasket. I was just going to start it up driving around the block like this, but I'm not even going to do that. And then the water pump pulley, Over here, the water pump over here, the gasket on it swelled up, and I was just gonna do the same thing, just drive it around the block. I wasn't really gonna bleed it or anything, just kind of see how it went. But we're gonna get gaskets for both of them. There's no reason to half-ass on anything. So we'll get the gaskets for both of these tomorrow, and then we should be good. I mean, the belt should fit because this is the 2.5 belt. This is the 2.3 belt that has the power steering pulley and the larger crank pulley. So this belt should theoretically fit on the car, and if it doesn't, then we'll just go ahead and get another belt, and we'll just measure the distance on it, see whatever Ford makes, and hopefully we get the right belt with the right size ribbing. So as far as that goes, we're just going to cut it here. I'm going to have to go ahead and pull the motor and kind of put it over here, move my radiator out of the way over there. And yeah, so we're just going to go ahead and call it a night. So this will be part 1 of the video. I'm just going to edit this and put this out there. It's kind of just something that you can watch if you just want to spend some time on it. Anyways, if you did like the video, go ahead and give it a like, and you know, subscribe if you want to, and give them the gap. Don't get clapped, and we'll see you later. Peace.